Three true, scary winter stories. Number 1. The Room. When I first got out of high school, my relationship with my parents had been deteriorating quite a bit. It only got worse afterwards. I had those sort of parents who want you out of the house when you hit 18, but of course, since I decided not to go to college, I needed to get a job, and to save up money to get my own place. Due to that, I had to be home for quite a while after I'd graduated. I remember that winter for a lot of things. Most of my friends had gone off to college in the fall, so I really didn't have anyone to hang around with. I spent most of my time working and the rest of the time at home in the room. It was cozy, but wasn't cozy outside. Hell, it was kind of wet and slushy a lot. We hadn't yet had any sticking snow, and whatever slush had been kept going on constantly a supply of more slush. I didn't have a car, and I hadn't intended on getting one. Although I lived in the suburbs, I figured when I did get my own place, it would be in the city. So there is no point in getting a car with all the buses and trains that were available in the city. I began looking at apartments and rooms to rent. And when I went to the city to look at them, I would generally have to be in the city all day. I had done this several times and was having a hard time finding a place. There were some nice studios in the city, but they expected me to pass a credit check. I really didn't understand at the time that they were just checking to make sure that I had no evictions. I didn't have any credit cards and then automatically thought that this meant that I would fail the credit check. Sort of makes me think that I would have been better off going to college. So I became more interested in searching for rooms instead. I recall this one day I was searching, and I had really had a freaky experience. I was taking buses, and I recall getting off a train when I went to walk to the appointment to see the room. It was dark, cold, and slushy by that point. When I got off the train, I did find the house, but I was there quite early. It was a really late appointment, so I stopped off at a local McDonald's to have something to eat, and it's odd how lonely I felt when I was there. I was eating by myself, and the city nearly knew no one in there. They were playing the O Tannenbaum, while I had a fish fillet and eggnog shake. Afterwards, it was closer to the time of appointment, so I headed out to the house. The neighborhood of the city there was not one that I was familiar with. In ways, the area was like the suburbs of the city. The house was pretty dark, and when I walked up on it, I almost wondered if anyone was even home. However, only moments after walking up to the door and knocking, it was answered. I don't remember the man's name, but I do remember feeling uneasy about him from the moment I met him. He is tall and thin, his eyes sort of red, and they rested in dark sockets on his face, and his smile made me feel so uneasy. The man urged me into his house quite quickly. It was a decent place. It had hardwood floors in it, even though they looked pretty old. He didn't have any lights on, though, and he didn't turn any on. There were some of those kerosene lamps with the colored fuel in it. That was a popular thing for a very long time, but none of them were on very bright. Without getting me to talk to him first, he began to immediately usher me up this dark stairway on the second floor. He had one of those lamps on the stand at the top of the stairs. He was talking to me very quickly as he led me to the door at the end of the hall. He actually had a padlock on it. He took out a key, opened the lock, and opened the door. There was another one of those lamps sitting in the room. "This would be your room," he told me. "Feel free to go in and take a look." I reached for a light switch, but he blocked me. He told me that he didn't like bright lights, and he would prefer that I check the room out by the light of the lamp. He kept urging me to go into that room. By this point, I was so off point and uncomfortable that I didn't want to go into that room. I got this weird idea into my head that if I did, he would close the door and lock me in. "Nah, the room looks fine," I told him. He nudged me to go in, but I still wouldn't. At that point, I just want to get the hell out of there. "Oh, so will you be taking it?" he asked. Again, this was really creepy. He wasn't asking me anything about myself at all. He told me nothing about himself, but he seemed like he wanted to get me into that room. "Well, I haven't narrowed down to a couple rooms I like," I told him. "I'll let you know." And that was when he said the creepiest thing of all. "You can sleep in there tonight if you don't want to decide." It was too much at that point. I babbled something at him, not being to my last appointment, and I had to leave. Then pushed past him quickly, down the steps and out the door. I looked back, and he was standing there at the door looking for me. He did not pursue me, though. I suppose it is possible that the guy was just weird and not intending to do me any harm, but at the same time, it definitely did not seem like that. I have very often wondered if he would have closed me in that room and locked me in. Number 2. Drift. I work from home, which is pretty important to telling this story. I don't have hours that I have to work. I get paid by how much work I get done, and I can do as much or as little as I want to. It's always been a great way to work, in my view. I make an extremely decent living, plus I can decide what I want to do on a daily basis. If it is a beautiful spring day outside and I do not feel like working, then I don't have to work. I can go outside and go for a walk. It's a great way to live. But even though this is the case, I actually do a lot of work. I do at least some amount of work every day. It's just sort of how I am. If I don't do some work all the time, I begin to feel like I am unaccomplished. It's sort of a really empty feeling. I just don't like it. So it can be really difficult for me to ever take a full day off. Now I remember how it all started. I got up after sleeping in really late. It seemed a little dark outside for the time of day it was. When I looked out, I saw all sorts of clouds covering the skies. When I got onto my computer and checked the weather report, which was not something that I really did often, there was a blizzard warning, and it was supposed to be a really bad one. It was going to be snow for days, and it would be several feet of snow. I really didn't have anywhere to go, so I thought I'd just enjoy the weather. It began snowing in the mid-afternoon. It started off slow, and then it began to get very thick. My computer was in the living room, and I was able to watch the storm from the sliding glass door of my balcony. There was also a light out there after a while. It was the only thing I was able to see outside. Well, that and the snow that was falling down in front of it. The snow began quickly piling up on my balcony, which also meant it was going to be on the ground too. It didn't take long before I wouldn't be able to open my balcony door either. By the time that I went to bed that night, it was quite clear that wherever I woke up, I was going to be trapped in my apartment building. Like I mentioned before, this is not going to be a big deal for me. However, I kept myself holed up in the 4th floor apartment for weeks at a time, even when there was no snow. By the next afternoon, it was amazing when I woke up and got a look. It was still snowing from what I could see, but I couldn't really see much. Almost the entire balcony door was completely covered in snow. I was waiting for the inevitable wind that would be coming once the storm was over. When it came, it did not disappoint. The wind howled all late afternoon and all night. Talking to a few friends of mine that live locally and were on the internet, they told me that their vehicles were completely covered in snow, and honestly, it lasted for quite a while. The plows were even snowed in, so they had to be shoveled or snow-blowed out, and that took time. I had friends who missed up to give days of work due to how deep the snow had gotten. Even I began to get cabin fever. That might be because Even though I spent a lot of hours indoors, I also had the opportunity to go out. Now it was taken away from me, and I didn't care for that very much. Once that made it even worse, when the plows finally came through the parking lot of the building, they simply heaped even more snow over the cars. The apartment building did not shovel out anyone's cars for them, so we had to do this ourselves. Not only, but we also had to wait for the snow to go down a little from getting assaulted, but it was so stacked up. When I finally felt I had the chance to go out and shovel my car out, it was pretty grueling. When I finally got a bit of it uncovered, I noticed something pretty shocking. One of my windows had been broken out. Snow had begun to fall in my car, although it wasn't filled up. As I continued to undo the snow and be able to see my car a little better, I nearly had a heart attack. There was someone in the back seat of my car. I began trying to talk to him and everything, but he was unresponsive. I called the police immediately as I continued to shovel. They arrived and took over when I did. It turns out the man had broken into my car on the night of the blizzard. It was likely that he was homeless and just needed a place to sleep. He probably saw I had blankets in the back seat of my car because I keep them there on purpose in case I go to a club or something and get tired. He maybe didn't know the snowfall was going to become a blizzard, and he got locked in and died. Number 3. The gym. I value my alone time, and I am a female, which is very important to know. I live in a little town by Madison, Wisconsin, called Verona. I shared a home with someone. I spent most of my time in my room. I am also not so big on the holidays like Christmas, so I didn't go to visit family on Christmas. In fact, my plan was to go to the local gym that I had a membership to and work out on Christmas night. I just really thought that going to the gym on Christmas night would afford me some privacy. It was snowing on Christmas that year. The snow around Madison, Wisconsin was quite thick and heavy. This night was no exception, and I was going to the gym. I really thought that I was going to have the whole place to myself. I'm not going to mention the name of the gym, but it was open 24 hours, but does not have a 24-hour staff. Every member had a key card that allows you to get in after hours. When I arrived at the gym, there was only one car in the parking lot other than me. It had a bit of snow gathered on it, so I assumed that the person had been there for a while. I hoped that meant they wouldn't be there much longer. I went to do my cardio on an elliptical machine. The guy who was in there was exercising on an exercise bike, and I could tell he was watching me from one of the mirrors that I was reflected in. It absolutely made me uncomfortable. But that wasn't as bad as when he got off the exercise bike, didn't wipe down, and moved over to an elliptical that was only a few feet from me. There were rows and rows of elliptical machines, and he had to move close to me. He had to keep looking at me a lot while I was working out. The discomfort was ruining the entire thing for me. I assumed that annoying me, that he would get the idea that I was not interested in him. It didn't stop. He followed me around the gym. Never spoke to me, though. He just kept staring and following. He really completely ruined the experience for me. I decided to leave the gym early. I went to the locker room to take a shower. The gym had individual shower stalls, which was one of the reasons that I went in. So I went in, and I was taking a shower. I almost jumped, however, when I turned and saw a shadow through the shower curtain. It was the guy. It had to be. He had not only been following me all night, but now he had come into the women's locker room and was standing outside my shower stall. I didn't know what to do, but I was really scared. I decided the best thing would be not let on that I was in there. I mean, he was bigger than I was, and if he wanted to overpower me, I have no doubt it would have been easy for him. I did grab my shampoo bottle, however, and was prepared to squirt it into the guy's eyes if he ever opened that shower curtain. A few moments passed. He didn't open the curtain. He did, however, eventually walk away. I quickly rinsed off. I crept out of the shower and inspected the locker room to make sure the man was gone. He was. I dried off, got my things, and prepared to hightail it out of the gym. However, I stopped upon leaving the locker room. I saw he was still there, sitting in the lobby of the gym. He hadn't seen me, though, so I was able to duck back in. I had enough, though. I called the police on my cell phone and explained what was happening. They sent someone out. When they arrived, I noticed them talking to the man right outside the lobby. They led him out of the gym and to his car. I didn't come out until the guy left. The whole thing was kind of creepy. But fortunately, the man entering the women's locker room was caught on security camera. He is removed as a member of the gym and I never saw him again. Thank heavens. Enjoy your evening, everyone. Stay creepy. Don't forget to like and subscribe.